Hello and welcome to another lesson on soundproofing. Today we're going to be talking about how much does a soundproof room cost. So if you are going down this journey of building some sort of soundproof room, let's say it's for a recording studio, maybe it's for your home theater, maybe you just want to cut out the sound of the neighbors or you're in a really busy, noisy area, no matter what, this lesson will help you on learning what it is that makes soundproofing somewhat expensive, what you have to spend money on, what you maybe don't have to spend money on. And I'll be using my free soundproof budget calculator throughout this video. So if you want to follow along and download that calculator, just go to soundproofyourstudio.com/calculator. That's soundproofyourstudio.com/calculator. All right, so I'm going to jump in now to the budget calculator. You'll see my screen and we'll talk through some of the aspects of how much does a soundproof room cost. All right, so you can see here, this is the budget calculator. It's in a Google Sheets file. If you have downloaded this from the website, you should be able to open it up and it'll look just like this. By default, I put one door because no matter what room you're in, you're going to need at least one door. And there's also a spot for inputting the square footage of windows. This is square footage because everyone's window sizes change, and really the cost of soundproof windows is based on the square footage. And this is if you're building your own windows, which I highly recommend to save some money. If you are not in the imperial system, which most of you out there may not be, in this case, you can use my input, the square meters to square feet conversion. So let's say that you want to do 30 square meters, type that in, it types in 322.92 square feet, and you can copy that and paste it over here. So that's how that works. I'm just going to take this out. For this lesson, I'm going to use a 200 square foot studio. Now this will be the space for the square footage of the inside of your studio space. So mine was 270 square feet, and all of these costs are derived off of my studio build, and that will give you the closest average based on the inside square footage. So if I plug that in, pop that out, boom, you get a bunch of different numbers. You'll notice right off the bat, over in our left-hand area over here, this is the cost of a studio built in your backyard or built in a non-existing structure. So if you're building from the ground up, this is how much a 200 square foot studio should cost you. So we have our $28,924.34, super exact. And then if you add a 20% buffer, which I always highly recommend everyone does with any construction project, you get into that $34,000 range. That way, when you spend less than $34,709, you're happy. Unfortunately, a lot of us choose this number or less, and then we're unhappy because we spent more money than we wanted to. A lot of people will not be building a structure from the ground up, which is totally fine. So I created a second little box over here for building a studio in an existing structure. This will help you with getting those costs more realistic. So if we look down, the final cost over here is $15,000. With that 20% buffer, it's $18,000. Just so you know, this removes the cost of the foundation, which is expensive, having the cost of lumber, the taking away the roofing and the siding because you won't need that, having the total cost of paint, and having the total labor, and that will give you a rough estimate. Again, I say rough estimate because this is a budget estimate calculator. This is not meant to be the end all be all. The labor, for example, was roughly $50 per square foot, which comes out of the fact that I paid someone $40 an hour to do most of the work, and I worked alongside them the whole time. And then occasionally I hired someone at anywhere from $20 to $30 an hour to help along with, like, say, the roofing or drywall or things like that. So for the most part, it was just paying one person $40 an hour. So if you're paying someone more than that, you know that your labor might be more expensive than that. All right, all this said, so here's some things I want to talk about. If this number I popped out here is way too much money, your first inclination is going to say, Wilson, you're wrong. I'm going to figure out how to save money, and I'm going to cut every little corner I can. And I congratulate you on that, and I think that there might be places where you can. My electrical costs were very high. The average is from anywhere from $2 to $4 per square foot, or all the way up to $9. Mine came in at 9.31. So either I got ripped off, or that was just the cost of electrical in Nashville. And so you could try lowering your electrical costs. Another place you could save money is if you don't use green glue. This $922 could drop down to maybe $500 or less. A lot of this includes soundproof clips, things like that. A lot of this stuff, though, is hard to cut out. The cost of lumber is going to be a certain amount. I did do a 9.4 increase since 2020 when I built my studio. That may or may not be accurate, so we have to kind of take inflation into account with this. And things like insulation you have to pay for. You might be able to maybe skimp on drywall, but not really. So a lot of these costs are just the cost of construction itself, and it just adds up. So that said, what is one of the main reasons that soundproofing is so expensive? I just wanted to talk about that. And regular construction, you still have a lot of this stuff. You still have lumber, but the soundproofing supplies do add a good amount of extra cost. There's an extra cost in lumber because you might be framing an inside wall, so you're building 2 walls instead of 1. There's an extra cost in these hat channels, which I used on my ceiling. The $46, it's not much, but it is there. Extra cost in drywall. We're using twice as much drywall as you would use in a normal home, and then we're using heavy drywall, 5/8 inch drywall over super light 1/2 inch drywall, which would cost less. So your cost of drywall is expensive. The foundation concrete is so expensive. So if you're building from scratch, that's expensive. If you're not building from scratch, thank goodness you have a concrete slab in your home, because that saves you so much money. And things like the mini split, HVAC can be really expensive. So using a mini split system will save you money. And just doors, $1,587 for a door is really on the cheaper end. I actually ended up spending more than this on my door, but this is kind of the cost I think you could get around. I made some mistakes with my door as we were building it. It took us forever to hang it. So the cost of labor, it was really closer to $2,000 or $3,000 when it was all said and done with my door. So doors are very expensive. Windows are expensive as well, as we'll talk about in a second. Paint, you can't get around paint. That just costs money. Flooring, you could do the concrete slab and save some money, or cheaper flooring. I used engineered hardwood, which is kind of in between doing a hardwood floor and a laminate floor. It's middle cost there. Roofing costs almost $1,000. Siding costs $1,000. Trim costs some money. And your ventilation system will definitely cost more than this, but this is based off of square footage, so it's running a little bit smaller. So in the end, you can see how all this adds up to almost $30,000. Labor is a big chunk of that at $9,524. So if you can cut costs on labor, a lot of people I talk to say, hey, I'm just going to do all the labor myself. Then yes, you can save yourself almost $10,000 doing all the labor yourself. So if we look over here, you cut out some of these things, and doing it in an existing structure definitely saves you some money as well. Let's talk about windows real quick. The cost of soundproof windows is very expensive. Look at $366.56 per square foot. That is really the cost of 2 panes of expensive thick glass. Laminate or tempered glass are the only 2 glasses I recommend for soundproofing, and unfortunately they just cost some money. So let's say we want to do a window that is 3 feet by 5 feet, put in 15 square feet in there, and you can see that you have suddenly increased your budget by $5,498.40. Yes, you might be saying I can do it more cheaply, but you won't do it better. And so I highly recommend that you do things right, and this budget calculator is there to help you figure this out before you jump into your project and waste money doing it wrong, and then it's not soundproof. That's kind of the whole goal here. So this is meant to help you, even though I know you're going to fight me on some of this. I say this just because I've talked to so many people that are trying to do things on a small, tight budget. And then lastly, I just wanted to talk a little bit about kind of the idea that if you really want to save money on this build, unfortunately, the one thing that will definitely cut down your cost is experimenting with the size. If you have $10,000, 100 square foot build is what I would recommend, 100 square foot room. If you're trying to build multiple rooms and say you have 600 square feet in a basement build, you're definitely looking at around $52,000, I would say, reasonably speaking. Yes, you could possibly do it for less, but it's good to have the idea that it might cost that much. So I hope this lesson was helpful in understanding some of the things that go into making a soundproof room. Whether you use windows or not, whether you go full on and do double walls or a hat channel system, either way, you really want to make sure that your budget is correct before you start building so you don't have big surprises. I'll let you know just a little anecdote about my own build. As many of you have watched these YouTube videos, you may have seen my build and it looks beautiful. It's awesome. But when I originally had set to build this studio, I was looking in that $20,000 range. I started at $11,000, then realized with soundproofing, it would have to cost more. And my contractor I hired, I love Henry. He's an amazing contractor, but he had never built a soundproof studio before. So he really didn't have a gauge of how much it would cost. And that's nothing against him. It's just purely not knowing. And so he estimated that it might cost around $25,000. And I was like, great, that's awesome. Let's do it. Pulled the trigger. And you're halfway into the project and I was already above that. And I ended up spending closer to $43,000. And then with the ventilation system, we're pushing at maybe $45,000, $47,000 total for this studio that was supposed to cost $20,000 to $25,000. So I'm being very honest with you and open that you don't want to do what I did. I had to find the money. I had to take money out where I didn't want to spend it and finish the studio, whereas I could have had a better plan up front and known how much things would have cost, and I can make better decisions that way. So I hope this was helpful for you. If you can build it for less, awesome, but use this as a starting place for your own soundproof studio room build, and I guarantee you will get closer to the truth than if you didn't have any idea of how much it was going to cost. Again, if you want to download that soundproof budget calculator, just go to soundproofyourstudio.com/calculator. That's soundproofyourstudio.com/calculator. I hope this was helpful. I will see you every week, same time, same place. Every Monday I put out new videos. And if you're on our podcast, thanks so much for listening. And I look forward to seeing you all next week.